Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into the fascinating world of pedagogical frameworks that are shaping higher education today. We're going to look at exactly how institutions are balancing traditional, time-tested approaches with modern, cutting-edge innovation. If you've ever wondered why university class is structured the way it is, or how digital tools are fundamentally changing the way we absorb information, you are definitely in the right place.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll systematically break down how these different learning ecosystems function. We'll hit the higher education evolution, who drives the learning, physical and digital spaces, the online platform revolution, and finally, building a holistic ecosystem. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The higher education evolution.
So, institutions right now, they are standing at a huge crossroads. Teaching at the higher ed level today isn't about completely throwing out the old playbook, right? And it's definitely not about just blindly adopting every new piece of technology that comes along. It requires a really deliberate balancing act. Educators must weave together the absolute best of traditional, face-to-face methods with the incredible reach of modern innovations. Think of it like mixing a classic Socratic seminar with AI-driven grading and analytics.
Moving on to Section 2. Who drives the learning?
Whenever we step into any learning environment, there's a foundational question we've got to ask to really understand the core pedagogical framework in play. Who actually holds the knowledge, and who controls the flow of the learning? Because honestly, the answer to that completely flips the structure of the whole educational experience.
We're basically looking at two totally distinct philosophies here. On one hand, you have teacher-centered methods. This is your classic sage-on-the-stage dynamic, where the instructor is the primary source of knowledge. You know the drill: traditional lectures, massive seminars, demonstrations, the teacher broadcasts, and the student receives. But then, look at the flip side, learner-centered methods. This operates way more like a guide-on-the-side approach. It shifts the entire focus directly onto the students. The dynamic becomes incredibly active. We're talking collaboration, inquiry, case studies, and flipped classrooms where students review stuff beforehand and use class time to actually problem solve. It literally transforms a student from a passive listener into an active, engaged participant.
And as you might guess, these two approaches yield drastically different results. Teacher-centered methods, they are incredibly efficient for covering massive syllabi. If you need to ensure strict uniformity across hundreds of students, a structured lecture hits the nail on the head because the instructor totally controls the pace. However, learner-centered methods are the real game changers for deeper cognitive skills. By actually forcing students to participate and collaborate, this approach develops critical thinking, creativity, and a much deeper, stickier understanding of the material. Sure, it takes a bit more time, but the cognitive payoff is just immense.
All right, Section 3. Physical and digital spaces.
This next question really forces us to look beyond the four walls of a traditional classroom. We have to evaluate the actual spaces where education happens, because the environment itself actively shapes how we learn.
It breaks down like this. Offline methods anchor us in physical classrooms and labs, relying heavily on traditional face-to-face interaction. Meanwhile, online digital platforms completely shatter those geographical boundaries. I mean, you can have a student in one hemisphere learning from a professor in another, interacting either in real time or totally asynchronously on their own schedule. But before we get completely swept away by the digital age, we really have to remember why the physical space still matters so much. Offline spaces are absolutely vital because they build human connection. Being in a room together fosters immediate, nuanced feedback. It builds social bonds among peers, and it allows for true hands-on experiential learning, like actually smelling the chemicals in a physical laboratory or reading the tension in the room during a live debate. Those are things digital spaces still really struggle to replicate.
That brings us to Section 4, the online platform revolution. Massive open online courses, or MOOCs, are a massive cornerstone of modern higher ed. They allow literally anyone, anywhere to access high-quality, structured academic content. They have completely redefined what it means to go to class, scaling the reach of a single educator to potentially millions of learners across the globe.
Technology is democratizing education at just a staggering scale. Take India, for example, with SWAYAM, their national MOOC platform. The scope here is incredible. It offers courses ranging all the way from school level right up to postgraduate studies, actively serving tens of millions of registered learners who might never have had access to this caliber of instruction otherwise. And then there's SWAYAM Prabha. This is such a brilliant use of tech. It's a group of direct-to-home television channels broadcasting high-quality educational content 24/7. It ensures that even remote areas with severely limited internet access can still get structured, continuous learning right through their TVs. Between this and global MOOCs, barriers are being broken down every single day.
So, the big takeaway here: online methods are the great democratizers of education. They offer unparalleled flexibility for non-traditional students, immense scalability for institutions, and true accessibility across geographical and socioeconomic lines. They literally bring the university to the student instead of forcing the student to travel to the university.
Finally, Section 5, building a holistic ecosystem.
When we impartially map out every single method we've talked about, something really interesting happens. You'll notice how the strengths of one framework perfectly cancel out the limitations of another. Think about it. Teacher-centered learning gives you that efficient coverage, but lacks deep engagement. Learner-centered gives you the engagement and critical thinking, but man, it is time-consuming. Offline learning gives you immediate feedback and social bonding, but you're entirely restricted by location. And online learning? Beautifully scalable and flexible, but it carries the risk of low interaction and widening the digital divide. None of these methods are perfect on their own, but put them together, they form a complete puzzle.
And that brings us to the core essence of modern pedagogical frameworks. When higher education institutions integrate all these pieces, they don't get a battleground of competing methods. They get a beautifully balanced toolkit. Institutions thrive when they seamlessly blend the structure of teacher-centered strategies with the active participation of learner-centered ones. They absolutely succeed when they mix the intense rigor and bonding of offline spaces with the boundless flexibility of online platforms.
This idea of creating a holistic ecosystem where knowledge is not only transmitted but transformed into lifelong learning, that perfectly captures the ultimate goal of higher ed today. Technology like SWAYAM or MOOCs isn't here to replace the traditional lecture hall, it's here to complement it. By combining these frameworks, knowledge isn't just being rigidly transmitted from teacher to student anymore. It is being actively transformed into a continuous, lifelong habit of learning.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Education is no longer a one-size-fits-all experience. It's a dynamic, blended hybrid of tradition and tech. So, consider your own habits. How will you actively navigate and benefit from this incredible educational evolution? How can you mix focused, structured learning with active, collaborative platforms to transform your own personal growth? Thanks so much for exploring these frameworks with me today, and keep on learning.